I'm using this as an opportunity to answer as many questions as I can based on my personal experience. Don't take this as an immigration advice because I'm not an immigration consultant, but I've done it. I've gone through that process and I've got people around me that have also gone through the process. And that is why we are telling you how it's done. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about switching visas whilst you are in the UK until your settlement, because some of the switch can affect your settlement, process, and some cannot. So I'm going to be explaining. And myself, I have switched visas 5 times and I have worked for 6 different employers within 5 years before I got my indefinite leave to remain. So when I came in 2020, in 2021, I was the NHS in 2020, 2021, I left the private. 2022, I took a transfer within the same company. 2023, I changed employers completely. 2024, I changed again. Then towards the end of 2024, I was unemployed for 5 months. And then 2025, I started a new job with a new employer, which led to my settlement. And so we've done it before. So switching from skilled worker to skilled worker is not a problem. As far as you are still a skilled worker, it doesn't even matter if you've changed profession. So for example, you are an engineer and you've changed to medicine. I'm just saying, I know it's not possible to be an engineer and just switch to medicine. I'm just saying, if you're an engineer, you switch to, let's say, healthcare, and you are still on a skilled worker visa, it's fine. It all counts towards your 5 years. If you are a carer and you've switched to a nurse, which is very common now, if let's say you came with a care visa and you've upgraded to being a nurse, it still counts towards your 5 years. You just need to update your skilled worker visa with the Home Office. So that is called the updating of visa. So once you are still in the skilled worker and you are changing, sponsors, or you're even taking transfer, it is the same. Likewise, when you take a transfer, you should update Home Office. Your company should update Home Office that you have changed your site, your location of your job from this point to that point. They must update Home Office about that. Let's say if you're in a company that has been sold to another company, because it happened to one of the companies I worked for, in the process was sold to another company. You shouldn't panic. The company that bought the company you were in should write to Home Office that they've taken ownership, and Home Office is going to issue a letter to the people on sponsorship that they have updated their details on their site, so their sponsor has changed without them having to change visas. So that is to talk about changing employers on a skilled worker visa. Next is if you want to change route entirely. Let's say you're changing from a skilled worker to a dependent, or you're changing from a dependent to a skilled worker. That is a totally different route, and that means that your clock is going to start all over again. That is, your settlement clock is going to start all over again. This is what people do not know. Most people do not know that if you switch from a skilled worker to a dependent, or a dependent to a skilled worker whilst you are in the UK, counting towards your 5 years, your clock is going to start afresh. So let's say, for example, you came in as a dependent to your partner, and then when you came, you got a profession, and maybe the relationship dissolved and you've gone your separate ways. That COS that you now have, the skilled worker, is now going to start counting afresh for you for your 5 years. So this likewise, if you were on a skilled worker visa and you decided to get married to somebody in the UK and change your visa from your skilled worker to become that person's dependent, it is the same. Your settlement clock is going to start all over again. However, if you change profession, or if you change career without changing from one route to the other, it doesn't change. So let's say, for example, you were dependent, right? And you came in with your main applicant. Maybe you came in as a carer, but you were originally an engineer. You, the dependent, that you came, maybe you found a job that wasn't in your field, and then later you found a job in your field. You can still be a dependent to your partner and not have to change visas. As far as that marriage is still valid and it's recognized and it's not dissolved, it still counts towards your 5 years. So let's say, for example, I've got friends that followed their wives who came, but they, the dependents, were nurses back home. So when they came here, they did their PIN and everything. They got their PIN to practice as nurses, but they didn't leave the marriage. The marriage is still there. They still count towards their 5 years because the reason why they came is the marriage, and the marriage is still valid, even though they've gotten their nursing license to practice. The only time this is going to change is when they leave that marriage and go and get their own COS. That is when it is going to start all over again. The next is changing from student to skilled worker. When you come in as a student, it doesn't count towards a settlement, because the rule of the game is that if you came as a student, come and focus on your study and go. But if you came as a student, you focus on your studies and you finish and you realize that you want to stay and you took a work visa, all the years you spent on being a student is not going to count towards your ILR, because student route doesn't count towards settlement. So the date that you change your route from student to skilled worker, that is the date that your 5 years is going to start counting. Another thing is, let's say if you came in through whichever route, I don't know, but you lost your stay in the UK in the process. Could be anything. There are lots of reasons why people lose their stay. However, you have a child with a British, or you have a child with somebody who is already settled and you want to use the child. That one is also another route. You can use your child. However, the child has to be 7 years, so that when the child is settled, you can use the child status to apply for your own status. So now you're going to be applying as a parent of a settled child, or as a parent of a British child. So that is how it works with switching visas. But if you're on a skilled worker, you're switching, it doesn't matter. It all counts for 5 years. So I hope this explains, the switching process to you. Keep the questions coming in the comments, and I'll try to answer as much as I can.